Hey, everybody, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Into all things relationships. And today we are
Oh,
tackling a topic that's kind of foundational to
Yes.
like any kind of relationship,
Yeah.
whether it's
yeah.
romantic, work,
Relationships.
family, friendships.
Yeah.
We're talking about boundaries.
Yes.
And we actually got a really great listener question,
Yeah.
or I guess suggestion more
Mhm.
than a question, which was to do a deep dive specifically on this like idea of 5 tips for setting healthy boundaries.
I love this.
And I'm not going to lie, when I first saw this, like 5 tips, I was kind of like,
It can be a little...
ugh, is this going to be cheesy?
Yeah.
You know?
Totally, I get it.
But I actually think these,
Yeah.
they're really solid.
They're good.
And I think
Yeah.
they're good jumping off points for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they really get at the, core of what makes boundaries effective.
Totally.
So I'm excited to dig in.
So tip number 1,
Okay.
communicate clearly.
Yes.
Like, okay,
Such a simple...
on the surface,
I know, but it's like, where do you even begin?
I know. It's like, thank you. I am aware that I should communicate clearly.
Right. And we hear it all the time, but what does it actually look like?
Exactly.
Especially when it comes to something like boundaries that can feel kind of
Yes.
vulnerable or risky.
Totally. So
Yeah.
what I'm curious about is like,
Yeah.
why is this?
Yeah. Why is clear communication important?
Like, what's the psychology
Yeah.
behind this
Yes.
that makes this so important?
When we think about what our brains are wired to do, on a very basic level,
Right.
we are
Survival.
driven towards connection
Okay.
and away from pain.
Yeah.
And when we don't communicate clearly in our relationships,
Mm-hmm.
it can actually create
Yeah.
a lot of unnecessary pain.
Because it creates like a disconnect between
Exactly.
your needs
Yeah.
and the other person's needs.
Yes. And it also sets us up for these misunderstandings and unmet expectations,
Oh, unmet expectations.
which are the breeding ground for resentment and
Yeah.
anger and all those
Yeah.
not fun feelings.
Okay, so give me an example.
Okay.
Like, how does this actually show up in a relationship?
Okay. So let's say
Yeah.
you are someone who really values alone time.
Mm-hmm.
You need your space to recharge,
Yes, I'm with you.
but you've never actually communicated this to your partner.
Okay.
And so they keep wanting to hang out.
Right.
They keep wanting to make plans.
Yeah.
And you're internally kind of starting to feel resentful.
Yes.
Because you're I need some space.
Yeah, you haven't said it.
Yeah. And you haven't said it because you're oh, I don't want to hurt their feelings.
Right, exactly.
Or I don't want to seem like I don't enjoy their company.
Or that it's going to start a fight or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then what happens is you don't say anything and then you end up snapping at them.
Oh,
Or
totally.
being passive aggressive.
Resentment.
Yeah.
Just bruise and bruise and then finally explodes.
Exactly. And then it's 10 times worse.
And then you're like, why are you so mad?
Right.
I just asked if you wanted to go to Target.
And you're it's not about Target.
Right, exactly, exactly. Oh my God, that's so real.
Right.
Okay, okay. So tip number 2. It's kind of, I
Yes.
feel like this flows perfectly.
It does.
Respect each other's limits.
Yes.
Okay, so we've communicated clearly. We kind of established what those boundaries are.
Mm-hmm.
How do we respect them? What does that look like?
So it's about understanding that boundaries are not selfish.
Okay.
And this is a really big one because I think a lot of people feel guilty about setting boundaries.
Well, but what if they think I don't like them?
Exactly.
If they think I don't want to spend time with them?
Right. Or what if they think I don't want to help them out? Yeah. And it's no, boundaries are actually a form of self-respect.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
Self-respect.
And when you respect yourself,
Yeah.
you're better able to show up
Yeah.
for other people.
That's such a good point.
Right.
Yeah, because if you're
Yeah.
completely depleted because you haven't set any boundaries,
Yes.
you're not going to show up as the best version of yourself anyway.
Exactly. You're going to be resentful. You're going to be drained.
Yeah.
You're going to be,
Yeah, yeah.
not a fun person to be around.
Not your best self.
Exactly.
So, yeah, okay, I'm with you on that.
So it's about recognizing that everyone has different needs
Totally.
and different limits.
Okay.
So, for example, like we were talking about,
Yeah.
some people need a lot of alone time.
Yeah.
Some people need
Introverts.
a lot of social interaction.
Extroverts.
Right.
It's funny how those things go together sometimes.
Right.
Right.
It's we're drawn to...
Like, how did we find each other?
Right.
Okay.
But yeah, so it's about respecting those differences.
Okay, so how do you do that? What's the is the actionable step there.
So once you've communicated clearly, which is step one,
Sure.
it's about following through on respecting those boundaries.
Okay.
So if your friend says, hey, I need some space this weekend,
Yeah.
you respect that.
You don't invite them to...
You don't then text them 5 times.
You're like, are you sure? But it'll be really fun.
Right.
Right.
Totally.
It's like, okay, I respect that you need some space. I'm going to give you that space.
Yes. And that builds trust.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because then the next time you say you need space, they're more likely to believe you.
Right, and be cool with it.
Yeah.
And not make it a whole thing.
Exactly.
Okay, I like it.
So consistency is key.
Okay, and that's tip number 3, right? Be consistent.
Yes. Tip number 3, be consistent.
So it's like, if we've done all this work
Yes.
to communicate our needs, establish our boundaries,
Yeah.
we got to, like, stick to them.
Exactly, because if we're constantly changing the rules,
Right.
it gets really confusing.
Well, and it also makes the other person not trust you.
Exactly.
Like, well, you said this before.
Exactly.
And now you're saying this.
So what do you really mean?
Right, like, what do you actually want?
Exactly.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So consistency is key in building that trust and that security in the relationship.
Totally.
But there is a caveat to this.
Okay, there's always a caveat.
There's always a caveat, right?
I was waiting for it,
Oh,
honestly.
no, I know.
Okay.
Because relationships are not static.
Now
They're constantly evolving.
change. Yeah,
You change, our needs change.
Our needs change, our circumstances change.
Yeah, exactly.
All that, yeah.
And so what happens then?
Tip number 4,
Oh, here we go.
reevaluate regularly.
Okay. Yes.
So we don't just like set it and forget it.
Yeah.
It's not like a crock pot.
No, it's not a crock-pot relationship.
It is very much.
It's more like, it's a good analogy.
Well, it's a good analogy.
It's more like a garden.
Okay,
You have to tend to it.
I can get down with that.
You have to.
Tend to my garden of boundaries.
Yes.
You have to prune.
So when we reevaluate, what does that look like?
So it's about having open and honest conversations with the people in your life
Okay.
about whether the current boundaries are still working.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be like this big, formal, sit-down conversation.
Okay, that's good because that's what I was picturing.
Right.
Like, we need to talk.
With like candles and...
Yes, exactly.
It could be as simple as saying, hey,
Okay.
I've been thinking about
Mm-hmm.
kind of our dynamic lately.
Okay.
And I'm wondering if there's anything that we could adjust or tweak
Okay.
that would make our relationship even better.
Okay, so how do you not make it weird? Because I feel like...
Even bringing that up, like,
Yeah,
especially if
yeah.
it's like, maybe a dynamic has shifted or
Yeah.
you've realized a boundary needs to change.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you not make that weird?
It's all about how you frame it.
Okay.
So instead of framing it as
Right.
like an accusation, you've been doing this, or
Right.
you've been so bad at this.
You've been, disrespecting my boundaries. Frame it from a place of like love and care.
Oh, okay.
And like, I want our relationship to be the best it can be.
Oh, that's good.
Right.
And I think maybe this needs to shift a little bit for that to happen.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
And then also be open to hearing their perspective.
Oh, that's huge. Yeah.
Right. Because they might have,
Because you don't know what's going on in their life.
exactly, they might have something that's making them act a certain way.
Right.
That
Exactly.
you're like, oh, that makes so much more sense now.
Right.
Okay.
So it's about coming to it from a place of curiosity,
Curiosity.
collaboration,
Collaboration.
and a genuine desire to make the relationship stronger.
Okay. I like it. I like it.
Okay, and that actually leads perfectly into the 5th and final tip,
Ooh, here we go.
which is compromise when necessary.
Okay. Compromise. That's a big one.
It is a big one, and it's often misunderstood.
Oh, totally. Because I think people think of compromise as like,
Yes.
I'm losing.
Yes.
If I'm compromising, I'm losing.
Or they think of it as like having to completely abandon
Yes.
their needs or their values.
Right.
And it's like, no, compromise is about finding a solution
Okay.
that works for both people, where both people feel heard.
So it's like meeting in the middle without totally abandoning
right,
what's
yeah.
important to you.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot.
The sweet spot of compromise. I like it.
Yes.
Okay, so we've gone through all 5.
We did it.
We did it. We communicated clearly. We respected each other's limits.
We were consistent.
We reevaluated regularly, and we compromised when necessary.
We're good to go.
I feel like we deserve a high five.
I think we do.
Okay, but really, I think like having these 5 tips in mind,
Yeah.
it's such a good
Yeah,
framework.
Yeah, it's a really good
Because I think, I don't know, for me personally, I've always felt a little bit weird about boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't want to seem,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, like rigid or inflexible.
Right, or like you're putting up walls.
Yes.
Exactly. But it's not about that at all.
Okay, so tell me what it is about.
It's about creating a
Okay.
safe
Right.
and respectful space
Okay.
for everyone involved.
So that you can actually have a healthy
Exactly.
thriving.
It's like the foundation for
Yeah.
a healthy relationship.
Totally, yeah.
Because without boundaries,
Yeah.
resentment builds, anger builds,
Yeah.
things start to crumble.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's like,
Yeah.
it's kind of counterintuitive
It is.
because you would think that, oh, if I'm setting all these boundaries,
Yeah.
that's going to push people away.
Right.
It's going to make it so that I don't have any friends or
Right.
I'm not in a relationship.
That people won't want to be around me.
Yes, but it's actually the opposite.
It's the opposite.
It's like when you have healthy boundaries,
Yeah.
that's when you can actually have those
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
deep, authentic connections.
Because you're not walking on eggshells.
Right.
You're not afraid to be yourself.
And you attract people who are cool with that,
Exactly.
that's the dream.
That's what we want.
That is the dream, to be in relationship with people who are like, yes, your boundaries, I respect them, I'm here for them.
Yes, 100%.
Okay, so for all of our listeners out there
Yes.
who are like, okay, this is great.
Yeah.
This has been a great conversation.
Yeah.
I have a better understanding of boundaries.
Yeah.
Where do they go from here?
That's a great question.
What's the next step?
I think a good thing for listeners to reflect on is
Right.
thinking about their own relationships
Yeah.
and asking themselves, what's one boundary that I've been hesitant to discuss? And what's the potential benefit of actually addressing it?
Okay, so it's like identifying a boundary.
Yeah.
And then what's the potential upside?
Yes, because often we
Yeah.
focus so much on the fear,
What if they're mad?
right? What if it goes badly?
Yes.
But what if it goes well?
Ooh, I like that.
What if it actually strengthens the relationship? What if
Yeah.
it deepens your connection?
Ooh, those are good things.
Right?
Okay, so it's like focusing on the positive
Exactly.
potential outcome,
Yeah.
not just the fear.
Because often the fear is way worse than the reality.
Oh, that's so true.
Right.
Yeah, we make it
About
so much bigger in our head.
In our heads.
Yeah, that is such a good point.
Yeah. So be brave.
Be brave.
Have those conversations.
Yeah.
You might be surprised
Okay.
at how well they go.
I love that.
And if they don't go well,
Yeah.
then that gives you information too.
Okay, yeah,
Right.
there you go.
It's all information.
It's all information. It's all part of the process.
Exactly.
I love that.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This has been a really insightful,
Thanks for having me.
deep dive into the world of boundaries.
Of course.
And for all of you out there, keep sending in your suggestions. We love hearing from you,
We do.
and we will keep tackling these topics.
Absolutely.
Until next time.
Bye.